All right, we're back here once again for Modern Mondays over at Chupacabra Games. Looks like for round one we have Adam and Kai. Players are shuffling up for round number one here, game one. I believe Adam is on the play, playing Yogg Moth here, as Kai is sporting the ever popular Murktide deck here. Looks like Adam might be down to six here. We're just looking at a turn one play. It's like a couple undying creatures here in the opening hand, as well as a Yogg Moth, I believe. Yep. Field ends as well, so pretty solid start here for Adam. He's going to be playing some hard to deal with undying creatures. Looks like Kai did win the die roll though. He's able to start with a Ragavan on one, and that is met by a Young Wolf from Adam's side of the field, which is one of the harder creatures for Ragavan to get through. Basically, just gonna two for one, any sort of bolt deck or deck that's trying to attack with creatures. And this deck is both of those. So Kai gonna have a little bit of a hard time dealing with this, but not impossible. Counterspell is a pretty solid option against the Yawgmoth deck. As they don't really have too many ways to deal with it game one. And looks like Kai's just going to attack in here with the Ragavan, which I think is an appropriate play. You're really just looking to minimize the amount of resources that Yawgmoth does have, which in this case are creatures without undying creatures, without undying counters, excuse me. Um, and we're just going to straight up two for one Kai here after the bolt. And looks like maybe a Wall of Roots is going to come down here after this fetch of the Misty. Probably going to see an Overgrown Tomb here. Down to 17. And we will see that wall. And we have a bird as well. We're going to get a neg one counter over on the wall to make this mana. So next turn, if Adam has a land, he's going to be untapping with 5 mana, which is one of the strong suits from these Yawgmoth decks, is being able to ramp really hard as well as keeping a bunch of threats in play. And not even threats sometimes, but since the deck is on Court of Calling and Eldritch Evolution, those threats, those small creatures do add up to be threats as the game progresses. As you can utilize those to either make mana or use them to sack for either Eldritch Evolution or Yawgmoth himself to draw cards just to find more tools. It looks like Adam's looking at 2 Yawgmoth and a Grist in hand, so if he can land either one of those, I think he's going to be in a good spot. Grist is a great way to deal with Murktide, um, as well as just go pretty wide and be able to get damage in. I'm kind of doing a pretty good job at getting rid of the small creatures from Adam's side of the field. I'm guessing there's just a lot of removal spells in Kai's hands, since if a Yawgmoth does stick around, it is pretty bad for Kai. Similarly, Grist is not the greatest thing for Kai to see on the other side of the battlefield. She's going to be a consistent source of blockers for Ragavan, small attackers to get in, and like we mentioned earlier, having ways to convoke and have targets for Eldritch Evolution as well. That isn't main deck explosives too, so that is going to trigger DRC. They get us one step closer to Delirium. I believe we have Creature Land Instant at the moment. So this artifact would get us to Delirium and would allow Kai to start attacking in. But it looks like we're just going to keep the EE in play for now. Hold up a counter spell potentially. As Adam does have access to 3 mana, but not 4 for the Yogg. And this might not be the best time to just jam a Yawgmoth in anyways. Even if you do have a backup one, just in the face of two open blue mana, it's just not really where you want to be. And we're just gonna see Adam B passing the turn back. On the end step, it looks like. We're gonna finish off the wall of roots. I do like this play. It makes it a little bit easier for Ragavan to come in, as well as taking Adam off of his much needed mana sources, which he really only has 2 lands, and then the bird as well. But the bird could die to a bolt or something of the like. And I mean, Adam's in a spot where if he just draws lands off the top of his deck, he's in a very good position. And if he's not drawing lands, he's drawing some sort of undying creature or way to find one. We see in Kai's hand right now with a Murktide and a counterspell. So this Grist is just going to keep doing work at making more guys, but milling over a Scavenging Ooze is not really what you want to see there. It's a pretty good card in this matchup, but it's not a land, so I think Adam can't be too upset by that. But Ignoble Herrick doing its best job to represent a land, so I mean, we have the most stellar commentary around. Yeah, you could totally come through sometime, Mr. Bo Dingles. Could always use some help over on commentary. Yeah, I think Kai's really trying to draw into a bolt here or something, just to get Adam off of Yawgmoth mana, because it's pretty certain that he has something that he couldn't cast without the 2 lands in play previously. Adam takes draw step. Looks like a Birds of Paradise. Didn't get a great look at it. So I think slamming a Yawgmoth here just to get the counterspell out of the way is probably where you want to be. See what we mill over first, though. So mill over another Young Wolf. Still a decent amount of the Undying creatures left in the deck. We're looking at, I don't know his list exactly, but uh, almost all of the lists are on 1 Drolf's Messenger and then 8 of the green ones. So 4 Strangleroot and 4 Young Wolves. So there's still 6 targets left in the deck that are very easy to find with Court of Calling as well. All right, so the first Yawgmoth will be countered by Counterspell, and we'll come across for 2 here after the Exalted Trigger. Grist is at 4, I believe, and the ultimate ability can take Kai out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards, 7 creatures in the graveyard. So that is almost a lethal attack next turn. We get to 9, we're 3 away. I'm in a pretty favorable position here. There aren't too many ways for Kai to be able to deal with a Grist that is already resolved outside of something like Unholy Heat. Bolt just only slows the clock a little bit. Looks like Kai just drew another land, so not even casting the Murktide here. I guess that's okay. He's not under too much pressure, but you could hold up Counterspell and Murktide, so I think I would have liked to see an attempt at creating a threat there, even with the Grist there. It does slow the clock down a lot, so I think you are at a disadvantage if you don't try to deploy something. And Kai's going to blow up the insects here. So even just a Yawgmoth in play is still going to be doing a lot of work here with a Grist especially. He's drawing like at least one card a turn additional to his draw step. We do finally find a third land here, so that'll be a little insurance, even if the mana dorks don't stick around. This Eldritch Evolution being milled, pretty unlucky for the Grist mills so far, but Adam's sticking it out, making sure Grist is putting in all the work, as well as Yawgmoth. And Kai still just looks like he's drawing lands. Although an Archmage's Charm is in hand now. Little turn too late for countering the Yawgmoth. Like Young Wolf was the draw, so that'll get things started for Adam here. Well, pretty commanding position. Might have been an Endurance actually. Oh, no, looks like Young Wolf. So Young Wolf will allow him to draw a few cards. If he so chooses, but I mean, just getting Grist to an ultimate position too is probably the easiest way to win this game. We still have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. So Kai's at a perpetual 5. I could come across for 2 here with Yawgmoth. But we're trying to draw into another undying creature, it looks like. Like Eldritch Evolution was the pickup. So that will be countered by the Archmage's Charm if Adam chooses to go for it, but I think that is fine. I think if Kai drawing 2 cards with Archmage's Charm might actually be more impactful than the counterspell mode. So keeping him off of that. Three mana here. We're gonna sack a bird. So Archmage's Charm will counter the evolution. And leave Kai open for an attack here. And there are 8 cards in the graveyard, or 8 creatures in the graveyard now. Kai perpetually 4 life. Adam will come across for 4 here. Off of the Exalted Triggers, sending Kai down to 8. We'll see if Adam sees the line here. I believe we have already upticked the Grist, so we might have to wait till next turn on that. Oh, no, looks like we have not. And we'll be going to game 2 with Adam on the draw. We'll be back with some sideboard information momentarily. And while we're waiting for our players to sideboard here, give a shout out to Chupacabra Games. where we host Modern once a week, every Monday at 7 p.m. Also, we're starting to do Pioneer as well on Tuesdays, also at 7 p.m. And if we get enough interest for that, we'll start streaming that as well. Have a couple days for streaming. It looks like for Kai's side of things, for the sideboard, we're going to be looking at 2 dress downs coming in, along with a Soul Guide Lantern and a Relic. So we got that 1-1 split on Graveyard Hating Artifacts. Dress down, really solid card at dealing with the Yawgmoth deck, making it so the Undying creatures don't undie, and the Yawgmoth is forced to act maybe when it's not as opportune or at all, if it's a timely dress down. And then the Relic and Soul Guide obviously being very powerful against the Undying creatures. I do like Relic a little bit more, as you can just activate it every turn, as the Yawgmoth deck doesn't put that many creatures, or that many cards in the graveyard in general, unless, of course, there's a Grist in play. So being able to constantly activate it every turn is pretty powerful. But it looks like for Edam's side of things, we're looking at 3 Endurance and 1 Veil of Summer. So Veil, pretty typical sideboard spot for any counterspell matchup. This counterspell matchup in particular, I believe there's at least 9 counterspells in Kai's main deck. And Endurance obviously can be a great blocker against Ragavans and DRCs, as well as keeping the DRCs at bay, and Murktide's from being prevented from being able to be casted. So, pretty powerful cards to bring in for both of the players here, and not too many either, as they want to keep their decks pretty streamlined and consistent, and not too much overboarding going on here. Just pretty consistent, good stuff. So, I think with Adam on the play, I'd like to see Kai still take out those Ragavans. I think just being stonewalled by Young Wolves and Wall of Roots, you're just never really going to find a good time to get in with those. And if you do, the game's probably already going on very late. And at that point, you're either winning the game or you're losing the game. And Ragavans are not going to make too much of a difference there. And for Adam's side of the thing, I feel like you could probably trim on some number of birds or ignoble hierarchs, as those are likely to die, and you want to focus more on having actual like land producing mana sources, or just Wall of Roots, something that'll stick around for a long time or be difficult for Kai to remove. And I think Blood Moon might be an option for some of the Murktide decks, at least in the sideboard, but I don't feel like that's that great of an option here, as most of the time the Yawgmoth decks do play Magus in the sideboard, and I'm almost certain that Adam is, so you can catch them off guard a little bit with Blood Moon, but it's really, really not advised to bring that in, as they have a bunch of dorks and ways to make mana outside of lands anyways. They really just need like 1 basic to get going. And speaking of basic, Kai's going to be fetching up a basic island here. Might be seeing a Serum Visions, I would guess, as we're fetching right now. Nope, we're just going to fetch for that island right away. And probably leave up Consider, I believe. But it looks like Adam will pass after playing a Young Wolf. And a Consider will be cast from Kai's side of things. Mill over a counterspell, pick up a mystery card, and draw for turn. Golden turn here for Kai, and just a pass back. So if I were Adam, I would think I'd be playing around a counterspell here, but really can't do that all too much. I'm going to play a Strangle Root Geist, which looks like it will resolve. I'm really thinking about this one. Wonder if he has Must just be a trust down, maybe? It wouldn't take the 2 from the haste. It looks like the spell has resolved. Alright, we're just gonna be tacking in for 2, leaving the young wolf back to block any Ragavans. That's probably fine. It's just a 1 life difference, so that might not matter. But I think keeping a Ragavan at bay is a little bit more important. Even though Kai is supposed to sideboard them out, there are scenarios where you would keep something unconventional in because people play around a card and assume that your opponent has made a decision when they actually have not. So I think it is very safe to leave this young wolf back here, especially since you do want to keep it without a Negwin counter on it, so you can combo with Yogg a little bit easier. Not have to sacrifice as much fodder, quite literally. Another consider here. All right, we are going to be pitching a Regavan for Fury, and that's going to take out the Undying from both of these creatures. And then we're going to drop a DRC. So interesting choice by Kai, because now Adam just gets to be on the beatdown plan of Yawgmoth, which makes part of the reason that makes this deck so strong is that the plan B is just you have some very powerful creatures that get to attack every turn. Some of them have haste, and some of them shock your opponent on ETB. So now Adam's sitting with a 2/2 and a 3/2. And unfortunately, due to Galera, I can't really see if Kai is delirious. We know about Consider, Land, Fury, and I think just more Considers, and a counterspell that was milled over. So we might have Delirium here. Even so, I don't think Kai would want to trade for the Geist with the DRC. We're gonna block the Young Wolf and take 3. Well, maybe we're not blocking at all. Oh, no, we are blocking. Okay. Kai is not delirious and chose to block the 2-power creature. A little confused about that play. So we have a Wall of Roots, and now we do have 4 mana, effectively, in play for Adam. So that is Yawgmoth potentially next turn. And Kai is holding up a counterspell. So that incentivizes Adam to not go for it here. But either way, we are going to fetch up an Overgrown Tomb, I would imagine. So we just have double black, if need be. Adam has a Grist hiding out in his hand as well. So an alternative way to bait out a counterspell here, as that spell is pretty difficult to deal with, as we were saying earlier. Once it has resolved, especially. Well, now Delirium is active, so this DRC is a 3/3 and can deal with a Young Wolf. But it looks like Adam's just going to go for a Yawgmoth here. See if Kai has it. That'll be a dress down in response. So this doesn't save Kai necessarily, as it'll stop the combo from this turn. But once the dress down goes away, Kai's going to be in a pretty bad spot, I believe. As Adam can just, on his end step still after the dress down has been sacrificed, go off with Yawgmoth. Or he can wait until Kai interacts at all and keep his large creatures around, as Kai is just at 8 life. Stun might remove the abilities, but the 1/1 counters do stick around, so those creatures are a little bit larger than they should be. I will draw. And hasn't been stopped by Adam yet, so Adam choosing to wait patiently here to draw a bunch of cards with Yawgmoth, as he can just sack a Wall of Roots to get a neg 1 counter on either of his Undying creatures, which will mitigate that +1/+1 counter, neg 1 counter exchange, result in no counter being on the creature, which he can then sack that creature, put another neg 1 counter on the other creature with a 1/1 counter on it, and effectively draw as many cards as he has life, or willing to spare in life. So potential 16 cards to be drawn here from Adam. I think they're probably shirt up here if Kai doesn't have another Dress Stone, or even if he does, Adam can just draw more cards in response to the Dress Stone. As he fetches up a Dryad Arbor here, probably just going to find, or probably has a Court of Calling, to be able to find something like a Blood Artist to be able to actually just kill Kai on the spot once that spell's resolved, if it resolves. And just a lonely 3/3 for Kai in play, so no Murktide to block or anything, even if we are on the alternate plan. But we'll see what Adam has in hand. The Grist in hand that we know about, a land, and one other card. So Adam could just attack here for 5, 6, for 8 total, so that is Kai's life total. But we're going to deploy a Young Wolf. Play a Peatland. And my guess would be go to combat first. Yep. Attack for 8. See if Kai has anything. Kai with 2 mana. There's a Brazen Borrower on the Yawgmoth. So if Adam would like to draw cards, he could just recast the Yawgmoth, I suppose, and then just put Kai down to 2. Alright, so the Surveil trigger will go off from the DRC. And we will put on neg 1, or a +1/+1 counter on the Young Wolf. Interestingly enough, putting the counter on the DRC instead of removing a +1/+1 counter. Still looking to try to get that damage in, I suppose. There is 2 mana to proliferate. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that is enough to kill. So being able to proliferate the 1/1 counters here on the Undying creatures that are attacking will just push over lethal damage. Alright, Adam will take round 1 here over Kai. And Yawgmoth will enter the XO bracket with a clean 2-0 here over Murktide. A pretty favorable matchup for Yawgmoth, I'd say. Just having a lot of ways to deploy game-changing or game-winning threats, as well as having access to Endurance main deck and sideboard, plethora of those, and ways to deal with counter spells. So Yawgmoth defeating yet another Ragavan Murktide strategy pretty common occurrence here. We'll see if we got any more Yawgmoth action in future rounds, but we'll see you guys then. If you put money on Kai, then you did lose. As with our channel points prediction, Adam will be taking the cake here. So many points to be had. If you're just tuning in, Green Black Yawgmoth, piloted by Adam here, has defeated Kai on Murktide 2-0. And we'll be moving over to the second round of coverage here in just a few moments. All right, we're back here for round number 2. We have Adam returning on green black Yawgmoth, and Mr. A, another Murktide deck. So I will see Yawgmoth versus Murktide yet again, but we'll see just how bad of a matchup it can be, if at all, for the Murktide player. As we will see turn 1 play from both players, but a little bit different than last time. I will see Ragavan from the Murktide side and Essence Warden from the Yawgmoth side. So not the best to block, the best blocking creature for Adam to have, but certainly a way to deal with the Ragavan. We'll shock down here, and we'll see if the Essence Warden is worthy of a bolt effect here. And Mr. A looks like it is, so we will get in here for 2 and still be able to hold up a counterspell. All right, so Strangleroot Geist for Adam after the Ragavan stole a ignoble hierarch, effectively ramping the Murktide player. So we're going to see 3 mana being tapped here. One of the few times you will see a Ragavan actually connect in this matchup is when the Murktide player is on the play and the Yawgmoth player does not have a turn 1 Young Wolf. Also, the Exalted also from Ignoble Hierarch being able to make the Ragavan a 3/2, so not being able to go over the 2/1, but still being able to have some sort of effect. If it does connect, it'll deal a little bit more damage, make Murktide's clock a little bit faster. So not a good looking start for Yawgmoth sides of things, but I mean, an undying creature that's going to stick around is a start for things. And as long as the Murktide opponent does not have a counterspell, we might be in decent shape if we can get a Yawgmoth stick. I do see a 3rd land here. I'm not sure about anything else. I think we see a Yawgmoth here, as well as another undying creature. But having the Essence Warden take another way early game, kind of sad, but also getting a kill spell out of Mr. A's hand. All right, an Unholy Heat will finish off the Strangleroot and just leave an Ignoble in play as the only permanent. 3 mana for a Grist here. Very strong play. See if we have a Spell Pierce. But Spell Pierce actually cannot hit Grist here, as it is a creature everywhere until it is in play. So we will see a 1/1 be produced here as we mill over a Wall of Roots. Looks like Archmage's Charm, DRC, Counterspell, 1 other card for, or two charms, 1 DRC, and 1 other card here for Murktide. And Ignoble making a red here for DRC. And just a pass back. So we do have a counterspell being held up in the form of Archmage's Charm. And There'll be a Verdant Catacombs here for Adam. Ticking up on the Grist. Maybe ticking down on the Grist, taking out this DRC? No. Staying at 4. Taking a moment to think about this. I think we're checking if the DRC is delirious or not. Milled over Endurance here. Adam having some pretty unfortunate luck here with the mills on the Grist, but that is just part of the tax of playing that card. It's still pretty valuable, though, having the card in the graveyard for if the Grist actually alts, which we did see last round. It's going to be drawn 2 cards on the end step here, and we'll be getting a trigger from the DRC. So we're going to effectively look at 3 cards. And I do see a Court of Calling here for Adam as well. So we're going to have some sort of window where we could flash in a creature here. Maybe an Endurance, honestly. I think we could Court for an Endurance here, which we're going to let the trigger resolve. And then I think in response to the charm itself is when we fetch for a forest and go for the Cord. Looks like we're opting to not do that, okay. I'm just waiting for the charm to be in the graveyard as well. I think that is a fine play. There's still not much interaction outside of a main deck subtlety we could have here, so Adam's going to be getting a Dryad Arbor, which will effectively be able to tap right away thanks to the Convoke on Court of Calling. Oh, and Adam's going to let him untap. Now, if Mr. A does drop a Murktide here, I think Adam is in a bit of trouble. I think that's a reason to fire off the Endurance there. Probably attacking the Grist here. Oh, no, we're just going to attack Adam's face down to 12 here off of the Delirious DRC attack. So getting to those numbers in particular is very, very difficult. Makes sense. In that case, you had one parent who was 100%, and one parent who was a quarter parent. I have 1 parent, I have 2 parents. I mean, that's the one that I do with top man, which is one of these looking at their 75. It's one of 81 that's like. And Gregor, it's like before we go into deep math analysis, these are rough numbers. This is not exact percent. It's like the way you're rounding them. Why? Yeah, it doesn't like. It's gonna Holy Heat take out the Grist here, so pretty powerful play. Still no Court of Calling for the Endurance. But that does probably show us that there's only 1 Endurance in the main deck. I have seen a few of these lists switch over to 2 Endurance main deck, and this is one of the reasons why, is if your Grist does unfortunately mill over the Endurance, you are able to interact still during game 1. But it also does take up another spot in your creature list. You know, you have only so many flex spots that you can have with this deck, and I think it's not the best thing. It is. There are some niche abilities you can do with it where you can evoke it on the stack, and it makes your Court of Calling a little bit bigger. But it looks like this Court is going to be for Chi. And Aquino is going to let this resolve. I think we're gonna find a Strangleroot Geist here. Maybe a Blood Artist of sorts. We do see Drolf's Messenger as well as a Yawgmoth in hand for Adam. So if we did this for 3, we could get another Grist, which I do like. But we only did this chord for 2, so our options are pretty limited here. We're gonna use Scavenging Ooze. Okay, that's why we leave the green up so we can exile a card, untap, exile some more. Maybe try to keep Mr. A off of Delirium, and I believe only 2 cards in hand for him. So this is going to be a pretty good job of keeping Mr. A's graveyard light. And we're not going to activate it on the end step still, which is a little weird to see. So we have three, effectively 4, 5 green to work with. We do want to exile a bunch of cards, and it looks like that's exactly what we're going to be doing. This will grow the Scavenging Ooze a little bit, as well as just keep Delirium not active, and maybe keep a potential Murktide for being cast. Alternatively, we could try to play a Yawgmoth here. Well, getting to keep the 2/1/1s is pretty powerful. We get some blockers, attackers, as well as something to chord with if that is another draw step in the future. We're going to come across for 1 here, sending Mr. A down to 14. I got to keep the life total pretty low for the Yawgmoth deck. You want as much life to work with as possible when you're trying to combo off, especially with what Adam has now with the Drolf's Messenger. This is going to be an Archmage's Charm to draw 2. We're going to bin Misty Rainforest to pick up another couple cards. But before the resolution of the spell, we are going to be activating Scavenging Ooze, it looks like. Fortunately for Adam, creatures are things that are going to keep Mr. A off of Delirium, and that will grow the Scavenging Ooze as well, as gaining him some life. Mr. A will untap. Looking at a Consider, Unholy Heat, a couple other blue cards, it looks like. And the longer this Ooze stays in play, I think the better the game is starting to look for Adam here. Just the less cards and more cards in exile that Murktide has, the better in this case, as Endurance is just not going to be an option in this game. But I think that is why we do play Skoos. It's just an alternative way to deal with the graveyard, but I think right here, Adam would definitely have preferred to have an Endurance just to prevent this Murktide from even happening in the first place. Will grow if instants and sorcerers are exiled out of the graveyard. That's what Adam's double checking now. So if you're going to do any exiling, I think now is the time. And looks like choosing not to. We'll come across for 3 here with the Ragavan as a 3/2. This is an opportunity to maybe get rid of it. And Mr. Ray not having any untapped mana at the moment outside of this potential treasure. So we know about Drolf's Messenger as well as Yawgmoth, so that's a total of 7 mana, not quite enough. But we're just going to chump here with an Insect, which I think seems fine. We're going to be exiling out of our own graveyard here for Yawgmoth with the Scavenging Ooze, making it slightly larger and getting some life as well. We're going to be hitting 2 creatures. I believe the Scooz is at a 5 now. All right. So we're going to be making 2 mana here. 3 mana. And 4 for this Yawgmoth, I'm guessing. Yep, there he is. This is a perfect time to drop him. I mean, there's no blue mana from the other side of the field, so it seems like an opportune time. As well as keeping some green mana up for the Scavenging Ooze to maybe outrace this Murktide region. Although the blue dragon does have a pretty fast clock at an 8/8. But Adam almost at double that life, so I think we will see a couple more turns, but without a Blood Artist in play, it is going to be rather difficult to deal with the life total disparity. Looks like we might be sacking the Dryad Arbor here. Try to draw another card. I don't think we've played a land yet either, so. But Adam does have the 3 mana Undying Creature in hand instead of the other 2, so making the mana slightly awkward here. I think the first Negwin counter took out a Ragavan, and now we're going to take out the DRC. Those are perfect targets for the Scavenging Ooze. We're going to be drawing a card that'll get us an Ignoble. I think that's safe to deploy here. Maybe fetch for a forest, be able to activate Scavenging Ooze, making that bigger as well. And then you can attack with that next turn if Mr. A decides to swing in with the dragon. Yep, we're going to be doing just that. Playing the Ignoble, and we should be passing it back over. We're going to be attacking now. So this Scavenging Ooze is rather large. I'm guessing with the current activation that it would be able to at least trade with the Murktide region, I would hope. As the Murktide is really the only way that Mr. A can start to win this game is if he can just fly over all of Adam's creatures and just start to deal big damage with the Flying Dragon. But offering the trade here is pretty strong. I think the life total exchange is also pretty relevant. Even just getting rid of the ignoble hierarchy here is going to pave the way for attackers in the future and make it harder for Mr. A to be able to attack with the Murktide. I think we're just going to see it passing back to Mr. A here. rather sizable Scavenging Ooze here. Paired with a Yawgmoth and an Undying Creature in a hand is really just going to force counterspells out of Mr. A's hand, and we're going to see just exactly what the contents of his hands entails at the moment, as we were a little unsure. I don't think we've gotten a great look at what we have here. Looks like Bolt, Expressive Iteration are two of the cards, and I think Iteration is about to be cast now. And that'll give us a good look at finding some sort of interaction, whether it be a burn spell or a counter spell. Either one should be fine here, I think. The Delirium, Unholy Heat, is definitely where you want to be. Something to deal with the Yawgmoth, and I believe Scavenging Ooze is a 6/6 at the moment. At the very least, it is a 6/6. So that would Unholy Heat is not quite enough to take it out, as Adam has open green mana and plenty of creatures to target. It looks like a second Murktide here is going to be cast, and that will grow the initial Murktide as well from all these instants and sorceries being exiled. All right, and it looks like Adam does not have another answer to that, so Mr. A will pick up game one here, and we'll be moving over to game two with Adam on the play. So I'm just going to get some sideboard information, more table spotter in just a moment, and we'll have that for you. And so from last game, we know, our last round, we know that Adam brought in a few endurances as well as Veil of Summer, and I think he mentioned to me um, during the other games that we are going to be bringing in Chalice of the Void, and also suggested bringing in Thrun, as it is pretty difficult for Murktide to be able to deal with. Alright, so we're going to see turn 1 birds that is going to stick around and turn into a turn 2 grist here for Adam. So super powerful. One of the best draws that this deck can have is just turboing out a grist on turn 2. And that's going to be probably the determinant of this game is if Mr. A can deal with grist before it gets out of unholy heat range, as it just creates an amazing amount of value in the form of the 1/1s being able to effectively make 1 mana with Court of Calling in the deck, as well as Eldritch Evolution, and even just be fodder for Yawgmoth. That's something that's going to stick as soon as next turn, if Adam has a land and the Yawgmoth. So just a humble consider here for Mr. A. We're going to draw into a counterspell, and looks like it might be a little land light. Oh no, I think I see a couple fetches in there. So we're just going to be passing back, having a counterspell up. I think that seems correct. Be tapping 2 mana for a wall here. And that wall will produce a mana to make another wall, it looks like. And it looks like we have an Endurance's hand as well. So if Mr. A does have a Murktide in hand, this is actually a pretty decent opportunity for him to resolve one, as Adam did not leave up any sort of threat. And Adam continuing to mill over the important creatures, this time a 4 of rather than a 1 of, so a little bit better RNG there. But we will be receiving 2 loyalty counters as well as 2 insects, because we did hit another insect off the top. And we're going to be fetching here. Down to 19, it looks like. It looks like we did bring in the Chalice since we're on the play. Turn 2 Chalice and 1 seems pretty powerful against the deck with a bunch of cantrips and 1 mana removal spells. And in Modern, we don't see a ton of Chalice of the Void, so the answers to it, even sideboarded, are a little slim. Well, we'll see an Endurance here. In the upkeep, it looks like. And that will be met by a counterspell. This is before draw step, yep. Alright, that'll be a 3rd land pickup in the form of the Spirebluff Canal. So this is going to tap Mr. A out from any creature countering magic. Counter magic, but it doesn't look like Spell Pierce is in hand. Might not even be in the deck post board. But we do see a DRC deployed here. But in the face of all these creatures, it's not looking too powerful. And so the army of insects for Adam is growing rather large here. We got 4 dudes and 6 loyalty, I think, for Grist. So with 5 creatures in the graveyard, that is quite the lava axe. And looks like we're just going to be courting for a Yawgmoth here. And that will presumably win us the game here if we can find some undying creatures. I have to imagine there's at least one in Adam's hand at the moment. As for the reason he's going for this play, it could just be though that this is the opportune time to do it, as there's no counter magic from the Murktide side of things. And we're going to be taking out the DRC, drawing another card. And that'll be an ignoble hierarch, it looks like. I think we can go ahead and deploy that. That's just another way to draw a card, even if there is some sort of sweeper being played here. All right, and we're going to deploy it and pass it back with 8 creatures in play, and only lands in play for Mr. A. So pretty polarizing from last game, but it does look very favorable right now for Adam.
Did you go to Walmart? Yes. You don't go here?
So Mr. is just going to make sure he knows how Yawgmoth reads exactly.
Yes.
There's quite a few words on there. I think the proliferate we saw last game was probably the most underused thing, but still very powerful. Realizing that Grist might be the nail in the coffin for Mr. A here, as there are 5 creatures now in the graveyard. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So not quite lethal next turn for Adam, as he untaps his army of insects here. We're cracking the peatland here on end step, and then we're going to untap. Draw was Misty off the peatland, and Misty again from the top for turn. So I don't think we have a way to kill this turn, but we can go ahead and get the attack in as quickly as possible, as there are only about 13 minutes left here. Okay, so Adam's choosing to kill his own creatures here to get the creature count up higher for Grist. And maybe squeeze out a little bit more of advantage. So we're looking at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 so far. So we're 1 off, providing Mr. A has no interaction. We're going to be getting a Dryad Arbor, which could just be sacrificed here in order to deal a little bit of extra damage. Also, potentially find an undying creature, and ideally 2, so we can just draw a large number of cards here and potentially win the game. I think we did find a young wolf. Or no, another ignoble, it looks like. So we're gonna Archmage's Charm, choosing to draw 2 cards here. There's like Unholy Heat and 1 other card, maybe 2 Unholy Heats actually. But Unholy Heat will target the Yawgmoth here. Looks like Court of Calling was the pickup. Very nice draw here, so we can chord for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can chord for at least 3. I guess at least 0, but I think 3 getting the Giralf's Messenger might be enough damage to take out. So it's going to be Giralf's is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're just going to get an Endurance, okay. I think Giralf's Messenger might have been lethal there, especially with the attack. But since we do have to do it at instant speed in response to the Unholy Heat, that it might not be the best option, so we don't get the 3 damage from the attack at all. Alright, so this Unholy Heat is just not going to happen, as it's only going to deal 2 damage to the Yawgmoth. And we still have a Yawgmoth in play. Pick up our Grist, mill over Strangle Roots, and pass it back. As Mr. Ray is at 9, and he is dead to just the activation of this Grist, ulting down. But I do think we see another Holy Heat in hand, so we might be able to get the Grist down a little bit of loyalty, as it's at 9 and it ults at 5. So we need to get 4 damage marked on it. We need to get 5 damage marked on it at the minimum, if we don't want to die to the Grist ultimate here. All right, so we are going to go to game 3 here. Mr. A realizes he is dead to the Murktide and can't deal with it. So we're going to have about 9 minutes left on the clock when we start this game 3. And should be enough time to finish up one more game post-sideboarded in this matchup. Just players making sure they don't want to sideboard anything else in or out before this game starts. I think we might see Chalice of the Void come out here. Yep, as Adam picks it up and swaps it out. So I think Adam's just trying to have another kind of explosive start. Probably not through a 1-drop of Mana Dork, but maybe something like Wall of Roots to block any Ragavans or anything, as well as also make the mana to turbo out Grist or Yawgmoth or Court of Calling or anything of those sorts.
Will be like, no, you're wrong. You workshop those away. They just told this to you. People in your computer are not real. Seriously.
All right, players drawn our opening 7s here for game number 3 with just about 8 minutes left on the clock. Looks like Yawgmoth is going back in, down to 6, and Murktide will stay at 7. So, pretty good for the Murktide player. You want to keep as many hands that of 7 that you can, because you are just trying to 1-for-1 your opponent at the end of the day.
What? No, that was amazingly fun. Okay, now.
Alright, so Adam's going to be keeping 6 here, as Aquino leads on a Fetch Shock for Steam Vents, and deploying a Ragavan. So hoping here that Adam doesn't have a Young Wolf, and that we can get in for 2 and make a treasure here. Pretty tall order, if you ask me, as Young Wolf is one of the key cards in this deck. We have a Windswept Heath, and just a pass back, so pretty good turn 1 Ragavan for Mr. A here. And that's going to hit a Wall of Roots. might be essential for Adam's hand, but I do think we see one in his hand already, so I think we're okay getting this one. Exiled it out of the way.
They have the Chandra being five thing because every single line of dialogue she has in Crimson Dawn and Midnight Hunt in added in the scene is just for him and John. They had to do it hard. Like so.
All right, so Mr. A not choosing to cast the wall. I think that's fine. You can hold up an Archmage's Charm here, or a bolt and a counterspell. All right, so we're tapping 2 mana here. Looks like for a wall of our own, which in hopes will stonewall the Ragavan. And I think we're just going to see it pass the turn back after that. So we're going to see a subtlety pitching a expressive iteration here on the wall of roots. So Mr. A may be thinking that Adam doesn't have a lot of lands in hand, so taking out a mana source like this after not seeing a mana source on one is probably the right play here. Honestly, we'll go and fetch. I almost want to see Subtlety cast starting next turn, as you can hard cast it and get it to stick around. Whereas in this case, you're wasting an expressive iteration and you don't get to keep the Subtlety as a 3/3 attacker either. But the Subtlety is blocked by Endurance, so maybe that is correct. But Subtlety also being an answer to Endurance is pretty powerful. Now we're going to see Exile over Strangle Rootgeist here. So we have DRC, Bolt, and one other card in hand for Mr. A, so pretty stocked grip so far. And I think we're just going to be casting the Strangle Rootgeist there, yep. And maybe a DRC as well. Looks like DRC and a Holy Heat and Bolt are in hand. Yep. And pass it back. All right, so Mr. A is the one with all the threats in play this time. And even some of Adam's threats are in play for Mr. A. Some pretty fortunate Ragavan hits as well. Geist making it pretty hard for Adam to attack as well. I think that wall of roots might have actually done a lot of work here in terms of keeping the clock pretty low for Mr. A. We haven't seen an Endurance cast here. Let's see. All right, so nothing in response to that. Those cards should be going to the bottom of the library and not exile. Yep, it looks like we were correcting that now. We're going to be bolting the Endurance, triggering the DRC. This looks like before combat too. Okay, so we have 2 bolts. Gotcha. We're going to see another Surveil here, and that one's going to stay on top. Alright, so I don't think we are delirious, so this is just going to be an attack for 5. But 5 when your opponent's at 15 is pretty meaningful. Exile Peatland, which I think Adam should be okay with here.
He was just a different time. Like this is like documented facts and like we want to care. I don't know. Like what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Like yeah. Like if you trust any person on the phone, any amount of information, word could be used in any way. You shouldn't. There's only one else in class online I would consider separating as because we are for like 4 years.
So we're going to be fetching down to 9 here, getting a basic forest. And we'll have access to 4 mana, so we might see another Endurance, maybe? Or is it 2 mana for a Scavenging Ooze? Okay, this might be a way to turn the game around. This can keep DRC off of Delirium, and this can exile the Strangle Rootgeist. And prevent Murktide from being played. So, Mr. really having this one turn to play a Murktide here if he's gonna be doing one. I think his graveyard might be a little too small if we don't find one here. But we do get a Surveil trigger off of Consider as well as Consider's ability.
Oh yeah.
I do believe if the Undying Creature on Mr. I's side of the field goes to Adam's graveyard, it will return under Adam's play. So have to be a little cautious about what kind of attacks we have here. It looks like time has been called in the round, so this should be turn 0.
That's a real thing that happened. And no, I don't know what people are surprised about this one thing. This happened. This happened. This happened.
Exiling over Grist here, very powerful play. So you're not quite able to cast it though. So just getting that out of Adam's reach is a good play. We should be on turn 1 here now. Going back over to Adam, who at 5 life doesn't have, I would say, the greatest chance of winning this game, but it is definitely still possible. If you can get a Yawgmoth to resolve and stick here, and then untap, and be able to have a couple of Undying Creatures, and somehow produce a Blood Artist, there is definitely a world where you can win this game. And I think Yawgmoth is in hand. We do know about that. And a few other cards as well, so not totally out of it yet. Might be more than one Yawgmoth, though.
Okay, we're going to do the thing. Like, here's the map. Estimated like that. In every single major poll, that was a lot. Oh shit! I think we're going to be wiretapped. He's released in 5 years. Absolutely related. No, they've been, but there's been attempts. They request for 7 releases. No, they have their events. They have one attempt. 7 years of play.
So here's a Yawgmoth and an Undying Creature. Adam will go to 4, taking out Strangle Rootgeist and returning it to his battlefield. So we are just 2 creatures away from being able to win here with Yawgmoth. I think Blood Artist might be the first step, and then another Undying Creature following that. They coincide here. That you need both if you're wanting to go off here. And I think Adam, one of the last cards in hand for him is another Yawgmoth. So we're looking for either a Court of Calling, an Undying Creature. I believe he said he takes out Eldritch Evolutions in this matchup. And I agree, because if that card isn't going to resolve, the fact that you have to sacrifice a creature as part of the cost is very relevant. Although I do see an Eldritch Evolution in hand right now. So it looks like in response to a Bolt here, we're going to be drawing a card. Looks like Scavenging Ooze was the pickup. And this is going to be a Bolt targeting Adam's face, so Mr. A will squeeze this one out in turns. giving him the win. So we will be catching y'all back here for round number 3 in just a few moments, as I believe this was the last match. So we'll see y'all back shortly. All right, we're back here for round number 3, and I'm joined by Robert Brinker.
Hello, I'm back from last week.
Yeah, we had the brief stream last week, but we are back fully functioning with internet. And looks like Eric is declaring a Giganta on his side of the board. So I'd like to believe that is a representation for Grixis Death Shadow, as it's a pretty popular deck choice for him.
I believe it is almost exclusively the deck he plays. So yeah, that's probably. I don't know. He did help. He did also have some weird Renin 6 teamer thing that I believe was playing Gigantha as its companion as well. That I saw up on his Mox field a couple weeks back. So it could be that. Who knows? Maybe his jaunts to Florida changed him.
Yeah, we've seen him meme before with Dredge and a few other things. So wouldn't be too surprised to see something like that. But
Does look like it's Death Shadow.
yeah, I see some black cards. Yeah, I can't make out anything perfectly, but looks like Bauble and
I see an Unholy Heater too.
yeah. And for Aiden's side of things, it looks like we are looking at blue-red Murktide.
Yeah.
So
He
three rounds in a row.
he spent that $350 or whatever it is on, or 200 sorry, $280 on his playset of Ragavans.
Yep.
Bad at math. $280 on his playset of Ragavans, and so he definitely wants to get his money out of those.
Might as well, yeah. I mean, not the cheapest card to own in the format, but definitely one of the better ones.
Yeah, that is certainly true.
And don't forget to get your channel votes in if you're watching live. If you're watching on YouTube, watch live and you'll be able to bet.
I guess an incentive for people to come watch us live at 7 p.m. almost every Monday, assuming the internet is working.
Yep, and I think that going forward we should have working internet. And potentially Tuesdays as well. If our Pioneer crowd starts growing, we might see some coverage for over on there as well.
Could we maybe even get Legacy going on Thursdays?
It's possible. Same thing. I think right now we're at 6 for Pioneer, so that's already more than we get on Thursdays.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But we're working upwards on it. Well, it looks like Aiden won the die roll here, and we'll be leading us off with a Spiral of Canal. A Scalding Tarn from Eric will lead to a Consider on the end step.
Looks like Aiden binned a Spell Pierce there.
Does indeed.
Now we're having the problem we had last week on the other side of the board, where the graveyards on close to the camera are a little have a little much on the way of glare.
I think either side it's going to be a little glary out today.
Yeah.
But the left side of things is perfectly visible, so I guess just about.
Oh, so it's just Aiden.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just his shining face. So the cards reflecting. Eric almost certainly on Death Shadow here now that we're seeing the Blood Crypt fetch out of him.
The aggressive shocking too.
Yeah.
And here's a DRC.
A card the two decks very much both love to play.
Oh, very much so.
And a second one,
Two
too.
DRCs.
Make the most of that bauble he's got there in his hand.
One of the best baubles ever cast in the history of baubles is with Dragon's Rage Channeler.
Yeah.
Adds so much incremental value to that.
I don't think it gets a whole lot better than that. Oh my god, another bauble. This hand is amazing for Eric. Cracking those bubbles will immediately put him on Delirium, and he'll have 6 power coming over at Aiden on his next turn.
Yeah, really forcing Aiden to have Bolt or Delirium as well to have Unholy Heat. As he's not going to have too much longer if he just gets attacked for 6 every turn.
Yep, and Eric has just gone ahead and pushed those guys up into Delirium, so Aiden can't have anything, couldn't pull any tricks here.
Yeah, pretty perfect sequence of mills off the Surveil triggers.
Yep, and then it looked like he actually kept that card that he saw on top with the second set of Surveil triggers. So something he's clearly looking to draw here. I would think maybe another Death Shadow or a Ragavan, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
All in.
This looks like an upkeep, or no, an end step bauble, so we're drawing 2
Yep.
on Aiden's upkeep.
Yeah, it looked like he baubled Aiden fetched to deny the information, so Eric baubled again to get his information back.
Yep. And it looks like Unholy Heat was picked up too, and that's just not going to cut it here against these 3/3 Delirious DRCs.
Yeah. Aiden's deck is on. Do you know how many Bolt he's on? I think it's like 3 or 4.
3 or 4 is typically what we see. I think
Okay.
3 is what the lists have been leaning towards more so lately. But Fury is also something that I know Aiden is on, so that is.
I thought he was on the just one in the sideboard.
Oh, Kai might be the one with main deck Fury.
I think Kai is the main. Kai and I think last round Mr. A also had main deck Furies,
Okay.
or at least at one point was on main deck Furies. I don't know if he was last round in particular, but I know he had previously mentioned being on main deck Furies.
Yeah, there's lately with Archmage's Charm that's kind of been filling the void, but there are about like 4 or 5 just flex spots that the Murktide deck can choose from. So
Yeah, is it? Does Aiden have engineered explosives in his main deck?
yeah, I mean we saw that from Kai as well.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I think he did pick it up off of the iteration, so he wasn't able to play it on 1 and then have it be able to be cracked
Yeah.
immediately. So he's going to suffer the 6 points of damage here.
down to that 13 that Eric wants to get himself down to.
Right.
Ooh, EI with two channelers in play. I mean, is it any more dig through time than that?
Yeah, I mean, looking at potential 5 cards if we're binning anything off the top, but it looks like we might be keeping it on top here. So just looking at the normal 3, it looks like Kaito,
Oh wow,
Unholy Heat, and
Kaito. Well, I guess
Drown in the Lock, it looks like, to be the last card.
yeah. I guess that makes sense now that he's with the deck no longer being constrained by Luris, it being able to slam some 3-mana walkers up in here is something I think that has not increased the power of the deck, but definitely is filling the hole that Luris has left.
Yeah, I think Omnixilus is an option too for this deck, especially like if they're playing Murktide. But Kaito does just say draw a card every turn, basically.
Yeah.
And then can threaten some blockers that can, or some attackers that can't be blocked, if need be. But in this case, it's just going to be exiled off of the iteration, so we might not see it.
Yep. So it looks like Aiden's missing another land and is elected to play that Otawara out as his 4th land drop, and he's holding up. I think I saw an Archmage's Charm in there, definitely a Brazen Borrower. He's going to Brazen Borrow one of Eric's Darcy's here in response to this Fatal Push.
So did we not see the explosives then?
Yeah, it might have been another card. I thought I had seen explosives.
I thought I did too.
It could have well been another card, or maybe he's wanting to hold it to get like Death Shadows, because like you pointed out, this deck can actually answer 3/3s. Can't quite well answer 7/7s as easily.
Nope.
And Eric doesn't have all too much trouble getting those Death Shadows up to being 7/7s when he really wants them to be. So
in Holy Heat here, I do believe we are Delirious. We have sorcery.
Yeah, the
Instantly,
creature going
yep.
into the graveyard there gave Aiden Delirium. So he's elected to remove the second Darcy as well here.
Well, both players here at 13. Aiden being tapped out, pretty relevant. This gives Eric a pretty big window to play basically whatever he wants.
Yep.
Looks like an iteration.
Not quite a dig through time, but you know, this card is pretty much just dig through time.
Yep. Yeah, no, it finds basically whatever you need. I mean, we're looking at 2 Thoughtseizes and a Drown here. So 2 Drowns we know about in Eric's hand, and we're gonna find out Aiden's hand here soon. Off of this Thoughtseize.
Is there any consideration to not taking the second Drown, given that your opponent is playing Murktide and has the ability to sculpt his graveyard out of like you being able to counter his spells very easily with that card?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to counter any Murktides, but it's probably going to counter some counter spells or stuff like DRC or even Iteration here. But we know about DRC now and Archmage's Charm from Aiden's side of things.
Yeah, I'm thinking what I saw that made me think it was the might have been the either the EI or the Archmage's Charm. I might have mistaken for explosives out of Aiden.
Yeah, it looks like Murktide was actually the draw here for Aiden, which would be very powerful, as like you were just mentioning a moment ago. If Murktide does exile the graveyard, then Drown really doesn't have any targets here. I don't think Thoughtseize would have been much better, as you just died to the Murktide hit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, neither card can really do anything about top decks.
Yeah.
Especially, well, top deck Murktide in particular. And Eric's just kind of hoping to be able to maybe figure out some way to put more cards into Aiden's graveyard to be able to maybe throw this thing into the lake.
Yeah, I think we're more likely to see like a Terminate main deck or something to be able to deal with this Murktide, but I'm not sure if that's even something that Eric is on.
Honestly, knowing Eric wouldn't surprise me all that much, but
Death Shadow was the pickup, so
yeah,
there might be a window here, but since these decks don't play Team or Battle Rage anymore, it's kind of hard for just one Shadow to win the game.
Especially with right now, Eric knows Aiden's hand is an instant and that Aiden is one permanent type, one card type away from Delirium. And Eric has Delirium, so his Darcy is forced to suicide into that Murktide, so he won't even have a blocker. I think I think Eric's just done here. I mean, he can kill the Darcy and buy himself a turn.
Yeah.
Oh, and have a Death Shadow as a 12/12, but his opponent is at 13, and 12 is less than 13, is how numbers work.
Right. Yeah. And there's not too much Eric can do to add on to that damage total either. I think we're still gonna try to go for that though. I think you can iteration. Maybe he blocks with.
Aiden has
Channel?
elected to not block with channel. So I wouldn't block. Oh, he is elected to not expose either. He's elected to not lose any of his damage and has elected to not expose his Murktide to the possibility of Unholy Heat.
Yep.
Which I think is big because I'm pretty sure Eric does have an Unholy Heat. Because I thought I saw one earlier on.
We're just gonna drown the channeler. See what we see on the top. Another Thoughtseize to the bin.
That seems like a real good place for that right now if I'm Eric.
Yep.
We just need to get 3 more cards in the bin and we can drown our opponent's our opponent's Murktide Regent.
Not unreasonable, but all Aiden really has to do is just untap, go to combat, and end turn.
Yeah.
as Attacking with Murktide is good enough at this point.
Yeah, and now you're holding up counterspell, although Eric having picked up that second drown in the lock does mean that he'll be able to protect whatever spell he tries to throw into his opponent here.
Yep.
Although oh, yeah, and he couldn't even because he was forced to kill the Darcy, he couldn't even hang the Death Shadow out since he only has the 2 lands.
Right.
Because his opponent could have stolen it with the Archmage's Charm.
Good intuition from Eric's side of things.
Is that another
Death Shadow?
Yeah, it looks like.
I think so.
Other than
Come across for 3.
other than like double heat, Eric doesn't have any outs here, I don't think, right?
Yeah, I mean, we might have a Terminate somewhere, but I do believe Aiden still has that Archmage's Charm, so.
Yeah, which Eric knows about, so.
Oh, that might be Obnixilis in hand, actually.
Oh, that is Obnixilis, yes.
I think,
Okay.
I don't think the devil he makes is a flyer, though.
It is not, but Aiden is at 7, and that is a 12/12 Death Shadow.
If this resolves.
If Aiden isn't heads up on countering it, if he doesn't know that it's target player, Eric wins this game.
Casualties on cast, right?
Yeah, but it creates a copy on the stack, so he can counter the token.
Oh,
if he doesn't know that he needs to counter the token, if that just for some reason doesn't occur to him, then he counters the wrong one.
He's gonna draw 2 cards. He put it himself. I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
I don't think.
Oh my god, he doesn't know. He's dead.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
All right, so casualty will have
token, and he's just dead. Yeah.
Target you, draw 7. All right. Eric's gonna squeeze this one out on the back of Obnixilis.
Wow. Okay.
Super powerful new magic card.
I can hear Aiden from here. Yeah. Legendary copy. Casualty X. As you cast this spell, you may sacrifice it. When you do, copy this spell. Yeah. So it is a copy of Obnixilis. He could have countered the copy.
Yep. Poo poo pee pee indeed. All right, I cannot imagine Eric expected to win that game.
Yeah, I don't. It maybe Aiden didn't realize that it was that it did create a spell for him to be able to counter.
Right. Or there's a number of things. I mean, new cards are always hard to understand, especially with new mechanics like Casualty. I mean, this is literally the first time I've seen this card be played, or that mechanic be played in Modern. So
yeah, seems pretty great though.
It worked really well in this situation. I like the split of Kaito and Obnixilis.
Yeah,
that he's on. It surely won him the game here.
Yeah.
This is one of the better decks, if not the only playable deck for Obnixilis in Modern. I think is some kind of Murktide or Shadow deck where you get to abuse the casualty ability like that.
Yeah, I could maybe see like a deck running Gurmag Angler if you don't want to be in blue for some crazy reason.
Sure, just a black red strategy.
Yeah, just because it's effectively a 1-mana 5/5, but you're never going to fill your graveyard quite as quickly as the blue
Yeah.
decks will be able to,
Right.
with all of their cantrips that can just straight up mill themselves.
Mhm.
So you almost have to be Grixis at that point. If you're playing blue in an Obnix list deck, you might as well be on Murktide if you're not playing the Death Shadow version.
Right. Looks like quite a few cards are going to be coming in and out here for Aiden.
Yeah. If he doesn't have that Engineered Explosives main deck, I imagine we might see it out of the sideboard here from him.
Yep.
Dress downs are hopefully not coming in. That is not a card you want to play against Death Shadow. They also want dress down.
Yeah, not particularly strong for the opponent, but
Yeah. It looks like those are not cards he's considering bringing in, maybe. Although I could be wrong. He's got them in with his moons, and those are definitely cards you want against Shadow. He's got Jace in there as well. I think I saw. I don't. Would you bring in Jace as a Murktide player against Shadow?
maybe on the play. I think with a Ragavan, you could get it out pretty early. You could get it out before they have Drown in the Lock.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say with a Ragavan, you can get it out on turn 3 with Spell Pierce back up.
True. Yep.
So, yeah, there's that. Looks like Aiden might be deciding to not include those dress downs, which I think is a very good decision.
Yeah, it looks like he's bringing in Relic too. I like that. It's a little awkward, but you can just activate it with a tap activation every turn.
Yeah.
And that'll do a lot of work.
Yeah, eat away your opponent's delirium.
Yep. While keeping your own.
Yeah, although unless Aiden happens to know that Eric is on, I guess, on Holy Heat, and is also a reason to do it because it makes it harder for them to kill your Murktide. But like, other than those cards, like unless Aiden happens to know Eric is on Murktide and he's trying to prevent him from having Murktide, is it really that big of a game to bring in Relic?
I think so. It does something in the matchup where like I think stuff like you might even be taking out on Holy Heat.
As Aiden?
Yeah.
I mean, it kills. Yeah, your opponent has a pretty good. Well, I don't know. He's not on. Actually, I don't know. Now that Luris is gone, he's less incentivized to play the recursive art, the permanent based graveyard hate.
Right.
So he might have switched to like surgical extraction.
Sure.
For graveyard hate, which would give your opponent the ability to modulate his life total a lot more at instant speed in response to an unholy heat on a Death Shadow. So that might be the case. I know Eric also has an affinity for the card Street Wraith, although I believe I bought his Street Wraiths, so I don't think he has anymore.
Yeah, and he's also playing Gigantha, and I think his
Yes, right. He cannot be on Street Wraith because of Gigantha. Yes,
Yep.
That is fair. I had forgotten that is a double black pip card. I only ever play that card in Doomsday, so it's just a pay to life draw card.
Yeah, I only use the Future Sight ones too, so I forget sometimes that it even has a mana cost. It's in the whole other corner of the Magic card, but
yeah, not even in the corner. It's just down the side of the art for some reason. Which I will admit on some of the cards does look quite good. I'm quite fond of original Aven Mind Sensors.
Oh yeah, those do look pretty spicy.
Much better than their TSR reprint.
Yeah, they had the promo one too.
The promo is okay because the art isn't washed out.
Sure.
The art is washed out on the TSR reprint, and it looks gross.
Yeah.
Also, the promo is old border, which for some reason makes it okay.
Yeah.
As opposed to seeing that art also really zoomed out as well, because they zoomed in a lot on or they zoomed out a lot on the TSR reprint of Aven Mind Sensor, because the bird takes up almost the entire frame, whereas he takes up, I don't know, the center 2/3 maybe of the frame on the TSR reprint. So
Sure.
I have very strong opinions on the art of white cards. You know this.
You're a fine connoisseur of white cards, if that's for sure. But looks like they're shuffled up and ready for game 2 here. Gonna see if we got any mulligans going on, but it looks like I can only imagine Aiden will be on the play.
I would assume. I don't imagine. I mean, if 8-Rack is still playable, I think that's the only deck in Modern that wants to be on.
Maybe
wants to be on some of the draw.
some very strange Manaless Dredge deck. Might want to be on the draw.
Even admit
I don't know. It's not even. They're just better versions. No, you get to play.
Manaless Dredgen Legacy has LEDs, and that's the only reason that
Yeah.
is playable.
Well, you just have the MDFCs now for modern.
Yes. Yeah, well, and that's really if you're in Oops, not
Right. It's not even Dredge anymore.
Yeah.
All right, so we have double bauble start with DRC again here for Eric.
He's thrown a DRC and a fetch land into the bin.
Yep, that'll help Delirium a lot.
Yep.
I think I might have looked at my top card there, depending on. I guess no. This is
No, because also he's got a. It looks like he's holding a fetch land right now.
Sure.
I think I saw a Scalding Tarn in his hand there. Although last game has proved how good we are at spotting cards. But I'm pretty sure I saw a Scalding Tarn. So you can hold that to get an idea of if you want to fetch or if you want to play a shock land if you happen to have another land there.
Right.
Ooh, that's big. Just stole Eric's Darcy after killing his Darcy.
Very powerful.
I mean, I think you almost certainly task this if you're Aiden, right?
It's have to.
I mean, if the card your deck is literally built around and you just got one for free out of your
I
opponent's
guess
deck.
he should have waited to play the bubble as well.
Yeah,
That might be
yeah.
not getting potential loss of one card there. I mean, there is a chance you just leave it on top. But
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what he ends up drawing here, or if we can determine what his next draw is. What it is, that would definitely, like, I mean, if it's just another land and he's already got a couple lands in hand, that's pretty mediocre. But like if he sees Murktide here off this draw, then I mean, I think he's pretty happy with that. Would have made the same decision no matter what. Oh, he's gonna bobble. Eric's gonna find out what this card is that Aiden may be wanting to have binned. And he's already shuffled his hand around. I have no idea. But based on the fact that he's got it looks like he has promo lightning bolts in his deck, and the fact that it looked like that card was, or is Unholy Heat's foil as well?
They might be foil. They're definitely not foil. That's definitely a bolt though.
But I was gonna say the card looked like it was maybe a little curled, and sometimes the extended art foils can have that happen to him. So I'm thinking he might have drawn a lightning bolt there.
I think so.
Which, given Eric's current life total, I think he's okay with. Maybe it was a heat because that heat does look a little. Yeah, based on how he just pressed on that heat, I think it was that another heat that he picked up. Because it looked like it bounced up a little bit as he pressed down on it. So I think it was the heat there.
Thoughtseize will reveal 2 counterspells, Bolt and Unholy Heat.
And Eric opts to take the bolt, which I think makes a whole lot of sense here. That's the thing that I think best answers all of your potential threats. Although he's going to fatal push the Ragavan also. Do you cut Ragavan as the shadow player? Are you on Rag? You're on Ragavan as the shadow player, right? We saw some last game. He milled some.
I think on the draw, you're not really incentivized to keep it in.
Yeah,
It's just gonna die and leave you open to another Ragavan.
Yeah, I know against a lot of the decks I play, a lot of my mono white shitters decks. Am I allowed to say that on your stream? Okay, cool. I don't know if I was allowed to swear or not. Just realized I should ask that before I say that. All of my mono white little critters decks with death and taxes and stuff. Eric frequently boards out Ragavans because I almost always have something to block it with. So it's just not quite as good. Then I figure this matchup would be similar with the 8 1-drops and 7 or 8 1-mana removal spells for the Ragavan, all at instant speed.
Plenty of answers.
Looks like
we see one here.
Yeah, Eric's gonna Unholy Heat his own Darcy off of Aiden's board here. So I mean, I would imagine Aiden probably also cut some number of his Ragavans. Obviously, not all of them, given that he played a Ragavan. But I would imagine Aiden probably also identified that as being the case in this matchup, and then they might have both cut Ragavans, or maybe Aiden next leveled Eric. Left him in, or
just trim some number of them too. I don't think you have to. I think on the play they are a lot better.
Yes, I think the card is much better. I do agree. The card is much better on the play because if your opponent doesn't have that 1-drop, you just get to dash it on 2 if you have nothing else going on. Which I do think is arguably the better thing to be doing. I don't know. Maybe you want to try to stick it and have it get recurring value depending on what the context of your hand looks like. But I think Eric in particular his deck would rather not stick the Ragavan. He would rather dash it. Although his opponent is on I think 0 sorceries that interact, so it's not like it's dodging anything to dash it.
Right.
Whereas Aiden, his opponent has Thought Seizes, so it can get taken out of the hand with sorcery speed, some sorcery speed removal of sorts.
Well, here's a Murktide here for Aiden.
Yep, and Eric being tapped out, although also his only on the stack answer to it is Drown in the Lock, isn't really going to be able to do anything about it anyway. What is Aiden? Oh, Aiden opted to pay. You know, he exiled 4 things from his graveyard, didn't he?
Yep, and then he paid 1 mana. So they just left the bubble in there.
Yeah, but he exiled 4 things from his graveyard, and Murktide's a 7 mana card, and he paid 3 mana.
Yeah, 4 + 3.
But he exiled 4 things from his graveyard,
Okay.
+3, and he also cracked the treasure, so that's 8. Or did he put a land?
He might have put a land into play tapped.
Oh no! You know what happened? I'm dumb and blind. I missed it. Eric had forced him to have to do that by doing the counter spell. The 2 lands were already tapped from the Murktide. He did exile 5 things from his graveyard. I'm crazy. I just miscounted how many things were in his graveyard.
I thought the timing was different on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Eric did it in his. Eric did all of that in his upkeep to force Aiden to spend mana on his turn, since he was gonna. I don't think Aiden was holding up anything. But okay.
All right, Murktide's just gonna seal the deal this game, and we're moving on to game 3.
Yep. I think they got distracted because our table spotter might have brought this up, might have heard us and brought this up to him. Brought this up to
This is possible. It didn't win the most recent event though.
Did you mute us?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize you muted us. Did it not? Well, there were like 4 events last weekend, right?
Well, the
And-
SCG in Pittsburgh was one of
Okay.
the bigger ones, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
That got taken down by lands.
Yep.
Green White Deaths.
Yep.
I saw that tweet. Yeah, but there were like across the 4 events, I saw somebody did a breakdown, and Delver had like a 55+% win rate in
Oh.
all of them, and it had a 60% win rate in one of them,
Yeah.
and it was also the only deck with a like decent like a multi or like more than like 2 people on it that had a win rate that high, because like there was a deck that had like a 90% win rate because it lost 1 round or lost 1 game or 1 match. But it was only played by 1 person,
Right.
and I guess it's 1 match that it lost was in the elimination round, probably,
Yeah.
assuming it was an elimination. The event that this particular record was from. Looks like we're seeing Eric lead on his good old polluted Delta into Blood Crypt.
Yep. The good old. Oh,
Into a Ragavan.
not the 5-point life swing, but yeah, we might have boarded back into Ragavans here.
Like we were saying just a couple minutes ago, I think that's not the wrong thing to do. I do like that. I think I don't think we saw any sideboarding out of Aiden. I wasn't super paying attention, I will admit. So I think if Aiden didn't side out some Ragavans to adjust for the fact that he's on the draw, I think he should have. Because I think that the card does just get worse in Ragavan Mirrors being on the draw.
Well, 3 games in a
So-
row, we got DRC Bobble. You'll love to see it from the shadow side of things.
I mean, I think any deck running DRC and Bobble loves to see their DRC right next to their Bobble.
This is true. We're in the middle of our thoughts here. 1 away from Delirium, and with the crack of the bubble, we will achieve it.
Looking at his own top to see if he wants to keep that or make it go away with this fetch land he's got.
We're going to make it go away.
Besides, it is not a good magic card. Or not a magic card he wants right now. At least.
Right.
Eric doesn't play bad magic cards, except for Gigantha and Death Shadow.
I mean, Gigantha is better than nothing
Well,
most of the
I'm
time.
also making
This is true.
poking fun at him when he can't fight back. Otherwise, he'd be pointing out how terrible all of the cards I play are. To which I would say, yes, Lean Arbiter is awful. I love Cat G. Also, I'm 0-4. This deck has lived up to its reputation of being absolutely and utterly terrible.
Yeah, I hate to see it, but
I mean, yeah, I put a card in my sideboard specifically just to bully Adam.
Yeah.
And have not played against Adam yet. So,
sounds hard.
I mean, also because I knew Eric was here, and it's also pretty good against Eric. Mirren Crusader against a deck that's primarily on black removal stuff is pretty good.
I'll say.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, looks like Aiden's got his own Darcy here. That was a really fast turn cycle, I think. Because
I think they were paused for a little bit, and now they're catching back up. Or is this Aiden's third turn?
this is Aiden's
This is Aiden's third turn. Eric just played land pass.
Yeah. Well, Aiden did nothing on his previous turn, but it looks like Aiden did nothing on turn. Oh, this was end step. Okay. Okay, so on Aiden's second turn, he played the Darcy, and then we were seeing it fetch in the end step to get a or to cast Consider. I see what's going on.
Mhm.
Okay, we got there. We figured it out.
no,
I think Eric was indicating there that Aiden might have Delirium now. I believe he does because there's definitely at least a land. Oh yeah, because there's the Ragavan, a land artifact, and then the instant from the Consider that just went into the bin a minute ago. So Aiden's channelers know only fight. And
Wow.
Aiden has quite a few channelers, and they all only know the fight. We can see Blood Moon just barely over in Aiden's hand over there.
Interesting.
How would you have felt about just windmill slamming Blood Moon into your opponent's 3 open mana?
Well, probably not great. I think you wanna diversify your threats here in the form of 3 channelers.
Wait, did Aiden not have Delirium? Didn't he need to attack
don't
at that?
think so. I think he has
Let me
land.
go check. I think
Sure.
I was supposed to punch Eric. Yeah, so it turns out that glare is slightly a problem. That's a lightning bolt in Aiden's graveyard. Eric was the one with the Ragavan, so he does not have Delirium because it's 2 instants, a land, and 2 artifacts.
Right.
So Aiden did not have to attack, but he also could not block. So why he didn't attack with the 1, I do not understand. Sometimes you gotta pressure the Death Shadow and just get him dead.
Yeah.
And,
You do grow it though by poking in a little bit by bit, so
That
Aiden
is
might have
true.
shied away from that.
You just full send. Just murder your opponent. It'll be okay. They'll die.
In theory.
Uh-oh. Stream lagging on my phone.
It's working up here.
Yeah. It's just my phone being dumb. I got back 19 minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's been trying to load it for a while. There we go. All right. Fixed it.
Looks like an Holy Heat was the pickup that'll take care of this 2/2 Death Shadow.
Why do I have my message right?
Might have been a month.
don't think it's been a month. It like doesn't give you the option to subscribe during ads, which is super annoying. You have to sit through the ad first before you can subscribe, at least on phone.
Oh, they gotta get their money somehow.
I don't want them to get. I don't want them to get my money. I'm already going to give them my money. They already get my money. Yeah, my subscription line. Those sons of bitches.
Hate to see it.
I
still got the Prime one.
Yeah, have your free money.
Nice. We appreciate those. Is it gonna go through?
Oh, it
this
pulls up
is-
unless I. Oh, you're not on.
Well, this is not my Twitch on here.
Oh, you're on Ian's, right?
It's like we're still trying to resolve this unholy heat on the Death Shadow. I wonder if Eric is playing around Blood Moon at all either. That is something common from the Murktide decks, but we haven't seen it yet, or any really inclination of playing a Blood Moon yet from Aiden, as there's only one basic in play.
Yeah, I don't. You can't really in your Archmage's Charm counterspell Murktide deck. Can't really slam Blood Moon when you only have the one basic in play.
It's pretty risky, I'll say.
It might buy you some time against the Death Shadow deck, but they do also run. They do have those threats of Darcy and Ragavan that are also castable off of red spells. So
Yep, and Ragavan is pretty good at making mana, so.
yeah.
Looks like we saw Flusterstorm and Spell Pierce. We'll come across for 9 here. But
Eric, that
Aiden
was
is tapped out, and we have a large Death Shadow here. Is this just lethal?
Yes, right? Like, yeah,
Wow.
okay. Which is why he tried to make the Death Shadow go away. Is because
Yeah.
it's a
He was actually just gonna die to it.
yeah.
All right. Looks like Eric on Grixis Death Shadow will remain undefeated and take this match from Aiden on Murktide. I think that game 1 really is what made the difference here.
So
With the Omnix row.
if you're Aiden and you if you don't make your Darcy's delirious,
Mhm.
you just hold the unholy heat for the Death Shadow, right? Because then
sure.
and then you just because you have Murktide, you just try to slam Murktide, right?
That might be what they're discussing now, and Eric's showing him a Terminate.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the Terminate, so it wouldn't matter. But then you still get to hold up the well, because the I guess Aiden's Darcy is flying, or Eric's Darcy has flying.
Oh, the Darcy 2 matters, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm still trying to beat the Death Shadow. But
yeah. Well, you have Archmage's Charm, so like you could. I mean, not immediately, but you were gonna draw it shortly.
right.
You could steal the Darcy or the Death Shadow.
Shadow and make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, just take that away, and then you get to. Then you can go into the air. I don't know. I am not sure. Eric also would have had Drown in the Lock and
Double Unholy Heat, so yeah.
Unholy Heats. Yeah, I don't know. I guess. Yeah, I think if you're going to fight on the Death Shadow, you need to do it after combat. So that way, if your Darcys end up delirious, they can block.
Right.
I think that was the needed to happen there.
Yeah.
Or if you if your opponent has any or if your opponent has any interaction for the unholy heat, you just slam as big of a Murktide as possible to get them to be so they're still as high of a life level, so you're like it's still only a 2/2.
Right.
But then you also have your I think you can make it an 8/8. So then you have an 8/8 Murktide staring down this 2/2 Death Shadow.
Right.
Eric's deck can get it to be larger. Obviously, that's literally the thing it does. But you're not helping it with that, and like maybe you will next. Oh, he might not have been able to. Then Eric has the Terminate for the Murktide, and Aiden might not have been able to maintain Delirium after. Like Eric might not have. Aiden may not have been able to maintain Delirium after like in main 2 and also cast the Murktide.
Right.
Though he may have been able to. I think he had enough lands and like he had double Mithra's Bauble.
I
So
think
if he leaves the Bauble in there and leaves, oh, you know what? He only had 1 land, so he couldn't pull the land out. He might not have been able to maintain Delirium.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, looks like we're all finished up here for round number 3. We'll see you guys back here for round number 4 shortly.
Alrighty.
How do?
Alrighty, we're here for our fourth and final round. Our two undefeated players have decided to split in the last round, so we are bringing the next best thing we've got. We've got Will on Amulet Titan versus returning player to the stream today, Aiden on Murktide. So for Will's side of things, it looks like we have an Amulet and an Arboreal Grazer that has just been unholy heated. And we are going to be bobbling here, looking at the top. Will untap and draw. And if we have a bounce land here, we can create a Primeval Titan. We'll see just what Will has in store for us here. We do have Cavern in play too, so that's going to be pretty powerful if we're not Garen breaking this turn, which looks like we are not. Me bobbling again. Same was on top. And we'll untap and draw. Gemstone Forge, thank you for the second month in a row of subscribing. Really appreciate it. Zeta, we do have sound. We were muted for a little bit, but we are returning. It looks like just a few more moments of channel point gambling if anybody else is looking to get in on that action. All right. So an attack with Ragavan here. Oftentimes Ragavan is not getting to deal damage to the Amulet players as there's our Arboreal Grazer in the way, but Unholy Heat will make quick work of that in this time. Good mana here for a very early Murktide on turn 3. That is one of the ways that Aiden can win this game is with a counterspell backup and a Murktide in play very quickly. Turn 3 on the draw, being able to do both of those things is very powerful and not as common, so you do love to see it here. Stream no work. Sure hope it do. It's working for us over here. Well, we'll see. Will being able to make 6 mana here, but not having one of them be a Cavern mana. So I think we're just waiting for another land here to be able to play some sort of threat. As the Murktide is only a 5/5, it's not the craziest clock, but it is a clock nonetheless.
Yeah, 3. Yep, it is that kind of it is.
All right, we're packing in here for 7. Will draw. See if we're missing another land or if we're missing a threat here. Teleria West will trigger untap. And that might be the 6th land we need for a Primeval Titan here. I don't believe Aiden is delirious anymore, so we are going to run out of Azusa. Looks like that will resolve. We're going to trigger our Simic Growth Chamber. That'll untap. I think Brazen Borrower in hand for Aiden. Second land for turn will be a Simic Growth Chamber. Picking up a Teleria West. Looks like we might not have a Titan at all, actually. Alright, so about a 2-turn clock here from Aiden that he's putting on Will, having multiple threats in the form of Ragavan and the Murktide. Murktide does have some room to grow if we play a second one alongside some cantrips, but at the moment it is just going to be a 5/5. So if this Ragavan can get in once, we will make it a 3-turn clock. In fact. Looks like we did transmute during Will's turn for Summoner's Pact. And there is the Brazen Borrower to bounce the Azusa, potentially preventing Will from playing more lands and also being able to get in for 7 here. Or no, that was actually on the end step. That was all taking place. And so pretty evasive army here for Aiden, but not quite enough damage to win on this turn exactly unless we see a bolt. So Will looks like he's going down to 1. Draws, exiles a Gruul Turf from the Ragavan, and looks like we'll be going to the draw step shortly. I don't believe there's any bolt lying around for Aiden. Run on tap and draw. Well, 1 life is certainly not 0 for the Amulet Titan deck. There are a plethora of ways you can win from here. I think if Will's sitting on a bunch of lands, getting a Cultivator here is pretty powerful. Although I'm not sure what the Cavern is on, as that might be a little tricky if he's looking to go for a Cultivator and that's not on Beast, whereas if Aiden has a counterspell at all, he probably should just counter the Pact. This is going to be another Summoner's Pact. We'll see if Aiden counters this one. We know about the Archmage's Charm in hand.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I have that.
This does look like 6 mana for Primeval Titan here. And another Cavern. We're making 6 mana, playing Cavern on Dryad, making a Dryad, Cavern on Giant, playing Giant, or Primeval Titan. I'm going to put a trigger on the stack. And we will charm the amulet. Primeval Titan's ability resolves. And I'm guessing we're going to get 2 Valakut's here, taking out the Murktide. So we don't die. I guess since we don't have another land drop, we can't take out the Brazen Borrower as well. So taking the amulet is just going to be enough here. We're going to see 4 bolts here. Excuse me. So we can take out all of his creatures, and we'll still be left at 1. So Will is dead to a bolt here, but that's honestly about it. There aren't too many ways. Like Ragavan would have to get through a 6/6 and a 2/4, so it's a total of 10 toughness. Something like Dash Ragavan double Brazen Bar is a thing, I suppose, but looks like Counterspell was the draw and Unholy Heat in hand. If Aiden is delirious, Unholy Heat is good enough. So we're going to attack in for 2. I think blocking with Titan here is safe. Whereas if he is Unholy Heat, he is Unholy Heat. Wait, double Unholy Heat is the only real way to kill the Primeval Titan if that's all that remains. Well, let's get to untap here. Pay for 2 Summoner's Packs triggers, so there's going to be a whopping 8 mana. Turn 2, 4, 6, and 8. So that will be everything accounted for. And we do get an attack trigger off of the Primeval Titan, and that might just be enough. So that is going to be 6 face. That'll put Aiden down to 10. Primeval Titan will come in with Dryad for 8 and get 2 more lands, one of them being a Vesuva copying Valakut, and the other one being any other land. And that will be more than enough bolts to kill Aiden. Someone's going to be picking up the Vesuva of Alka. Looks like a Unholy Heat with no Delirium is not enough to take out the Dryad, and that will make it go on. Game 1 go to Will. So we will be back for game number 2 in a few moments. All right, we are back here for game number 2 of our fourth and final round tonight. Modern Mondays at Chupacabra Games. And like Aiden will be on the play and on a multi 6, where we're still looking at 7. Thinking about Aiden going to 6, seeing if we can keep this, and looks like it. For Annual Titan side of things in this matchup, you're really looking for a hand that has a forest and a way to deal with a Blood Moon or a Magus of the Moon. So something like Dismember or Besage. I know Will likes Force of Vigor in this matchup as well. And obviously, something like Dryad or some kind of threat. And lands are always a good thing for the Annual Titan deck to have. But those usually aren't as essential if you can't make them do their normal function. So getting any Blood Moons off the table is always key. And with Aiden's side of things, you're looking for dress downs and ways to deal with Titan outside of counterspell. So like something like Subtlety or Aether Gust, as well as your normal game plan. And of course, Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon always helps. Looks like Aiden's keeping 6, and I see a Blood Moon and a Ragavan there for him. So we might be on a turn 2 Blood Moon package here. We see there's the Forest and an Arboreal Grazer. So very strong. Gonna keep Ragavan at bay, as well as ramping Will to 2 mana. Looks like we'll be considered. I think Aiden may have kept a 1-land hand off of the back of this Ragavan, and intending that it will connect. But yeah, that looks to be the case. Will on tap very happily, I imagine. So this Arboreal Grazer putting in the most work this game. We'll see if he can follow it up for a quick Titan before Aiden finds any lands to draw. It looks like Vesuva's going to copy a forest here, and we might just be passing it back. We're going to spend 1 mana on a relic. Okay, very powerful magic card there. We're going to be activating it now, getting rid of a Consider out of the graveyard. So just draws down in the yard now. We're going to be bolting the Grazer. Unfortunate turn of events. The Ragavan will get to attack here. Aiden still without a land drop. Snagging an amulet off of the top for Will.
Wild. Take one. Bullet.
Tireless Tracker going to here for Will. Also going to get a trigger right away. You'd love to see it. Tracker is a great alternate way to win these games against Blood Moon or anything like that. It'll just help you find cards to answer whatever is blocking the road there. So if it's a Magus or if it's a Blood Moon, Tireless Tracker will certainly help you find a way through that. So we're going to see our DRC here. Still not able to cast Blood Moon for Aiden. Very fortunate for Will here. Coming across for 2 with Ragavan. I might be inclined to block this, knowing that that Aiden is on that 1 land and now is able to cast a Blood Moon if he so chooses. But that would leave himself with no red mana, and he's going to drop down another DRC using one of these treasures. And 1 more mana for Will, untapped, will provide enough to activate this castle, so we might see a Titan this turn. Looks like bounce land. So next turn we're going to be looking at a some sort of green creature. It'll be explosives on 1. It looks like. And that will be caught by a Spell Pierce, so forcing Will to tap out now. Yeah, explosives on 1 looks pretty solid here. It's gonna take out the relic for Will, but I think he might just be activating it this turn in preparation for the explosives, just to maximize the value against Aiden here. And I think now you might be a little more incentivized to block with the tracker, just so there's less treasures for Aiden to work with, so it just means less mana in general. And he's going to offer that trade now. Will's not going to take it either. He wants to just win the game with this tracker, it looks like. Exiling Beseiju, it's a good answer to Blood Moon, but not in exile. And still no second land for Aiden, it looks like. Even with all these Ragavan hits. Oh, it looks like we do see a second land here, so we might see a Blood Moon too, especially after exiling the Beseiju. That seems a lot less likely that Will has any answers to it. But still, that would only leave Aiden with red mana. And that is the reason why I do like blocking with the tracker there, but Aiden looks like he's just going to hold up a counter spell. Will does have a cavern. And that'll trigger the Tireless Tracker up to 3 treasures. Oh, thank you. Looks like we are cracking both of the artifacts here for Will. That will result in no graveyard for Aiden and no 1-drops in play. A rather large tireless tracker potentially here. We did already see a land drop being played, but we could crack a clue here. That is now a 4-3 tracker and coming across. Putting Aiden down to 14. Mobile for Aiden, looking at his own top of the library. Bowden will come down. Honestly, doing more damage to Aiden than it might be doing to Will at this point, as the tracker is already in play and starting to grow. And Aiden is just left with red mana with counterspells in hand. Pretty beefy tracker coming across here. On tap, come across again, and that'll do it. Will take this match in 2. All right. Well, that will conclude our games for this week's Modern Mondays. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll be uploading it onto YouTube as well as the VOD will be visible over on Twitch as well. So we'll see you guys next week.